Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our very first Magnet Monday meeting. We are very excited to have you here. During this meeting, please feel free to ask all your questions in the Q&A section, which you will find at the bottom of your Zoom meeting. If you would actually like to join the discussion, please just simply raise your hand, use the button as well, as you'll find at the bottom here, and we can invite you to the panel. Should you experience any technical difficulties, you can contact us in the chat button in the upper right corner of our meeting room or within the Zoom chat. Please note that we are recording this session today, and it will be made available on demand in this very venue in our media library room. In today's Magnet Monday meeting, we will hear a short introduction from our very own CEO, Christian Holtz. We have our customer experience mastermind, Lisbeth, to guide us through the many roads to success. And last but certainly not least, technology expert Leonard from one of our partner agencies to provide some best practices. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to the brain behind Magnid, Christian. Oh, Christian, you're on mute. Could you unmute yourself, please?
The classical one. Thank you.
The classical one from last year.
Thanks for that exciting intro. It's really great to see all of you here on the line and joining our webinar. And as a short introduction, I mean, we're at the beginning of the year. Let's just have a short look back on the first slide and look at what 2021 was such an exciting year. Now, we counted how many people used the platform only in that first year, and it was over 200,000. And that makes us so proud because it's really exciting. As a startup, gaining great customers, working on so many different events, and having a platform that is robust and offers so many opportunities. And it was so exciting to see all of these attendees joining, being happy, having very, very good meetings, because of course our customers, they really did very effective virtual meetings, sometimes combining them already with live meetings where it was possible. And it was so diverse. So we were really, really proud seeing so many different languages, so many different countries, so many different regions being involved in here. And this with over 650 events last year. So it's been really growing. It's been really huge. And yeah, that implies, of course, that we've talked to you a lot. And we see that customers are planning on using our platform long-term, working with us closely. And this means that we also receive a lot of questions, a lot of interesting topics, a lot of practical aspects where we thought, well, let's give something back to our community and let's kick off our Magnet Monday. Well, what's that format about? We decided to have a webinar every last Monday of the month and then pick up topics that we see that really are relevant to the market, relevant to our customer base, but also topics that we receive as a feedback from our discussions with you. And we will do that in a change. So we will have a community edition, which is more for our direct customers, for the practitioners, those that use Magnet as a platform and get practical tips and tricks. So that's what we have today. And then in the next month, we will have like an open Magnet Monday meeting, which is more general, which really picks up topics that are also interesting for those that are looking at Magnet as a platform and trying to learn a little bit about it, and then also gaining some insight into the market and into the new developments of that always changing environment with virtual, hybrid, and live events. So this is our start today. We're very open for feedback. We're looking forward to what is in store for us. And yeah, looking at today's topic, we will have Lisbeth talking about many roads to success, how we can make our ideas happen. We picked that topic because Magnet as a platform is so flexible. It offers so many opportunities to integrate different tools, to integrate different technologies, that we thought we give you some of the good ideas that we saw from our customers and from our friends using the platform and pass them on now in that webinar. So it's really something with practical tips and hints for the practitioners. We're looking forward to that. In the end, finally, we're going to ask you for feedback. And please give us that feedback because we want to grow, we want to get better, and we also want to listen to the topics that are of interest to you in order to pick them up for one of our next month meetings. So let's look into what is in store now and pass back to Ilse, and then, yeah, have fun on our Magnet Monday meeting.
Thanks very much, Christian, for this brief introduction. We certainly do hope you're all as excited as we are to be here today. I would like to remind all of our attendees that you can ask any questions you may already have or that will come up during the next presentation in the Q&A below. Now it is my pleasure to introduce you to Lisbeth, who will discuss the many roads to success and how to put your ideas into reality.
Yes, thank you very much, Ilse, for the introduction, and also Christian for your introduction to our Magnet Monday, which is a new event concept for you as our customers that we want to pursue over the next months. And as mentioned today, we are going to look at the many different roads of success and what makes an event successful, and how you can use Magnet as a platform to help you achieve your goals when it comes to your virtual events or hybrid events even. Now, while preparing for this meeting and for this presentation, I realized that we are presenting Magnet as a platform to you very often with examples to guide you. The 4 example architectures that you see are very often used and referred to by us just to present you with an easy stepping stone into creating your first virtual event or your first virtual space by yourself and on your own. So, as they are one example, but they are not the ultimate need or the ultimate answer to all of the different use cases that you might have. Now, when it comes to defining what makes an event successful, it's very, very much about asking the right questions for your event. You will need to find answers that will apply for your specific event. When it comes to measuring a successful virtual meeting, it's not often or not always about one size fits all when it comes to defining that, but it is very much specific to what you have in mind. Now, after looking at some of the success parameters for events and how you can define them, and we will provide you with some examples of what they are, we will also look today at how you can place content that matters to your audience. And after that, we will also present you with some think outside the box smart widget use cases of how you can maybe achieve something out of the box with one of our widgets, or even by making use of the different areas that we have. The first thing we will be looking at today is what kind of questions you need to answer before you can actually define what makes your event successful. And this is basically the same as we would have with any event, be that face-to-face, hybrid, or virtual. Before you start visualizing and drafting the message of your event that you want to send to your audience, there are questions that you need to answer for yourself, such as why I'm hosting this event, what is the purpose of my event, what are my goals, what is my message, what do I want my target group to experience throughout this event. And second set of questions, very important to answer as well, is how can I reach my target group? How can I best deliver my message to them? And once you have answered that question for your event and found the answers to that, you can then start with the next step, which would be the definition of the success parameters for your event. Now, here, the same as with the questions that you ask about your events, measuring KPIs for your events, there's no one size fits all. So it's very specific to your event, be that the overall number of visitors. You might have a very high target for your event. You might have a smaller target for your event. Sometimes geographic reach is very important to your event success. Sometimes also the time spent on the platform is something that you might want to look at, or the interaction with very specific content. If you're thinking about your platform as more a long-term solution where visitors can return to, the audience can return to and look at the content again, for example, if you make content available on demand, then the number of returning visits can also be an indication. As said, this list of KPI is not the best solution for every event, and it's definitely not a complete list of KPI that you can come up with. It very much depends on what you have in mind and what you have planned. Now, these are more the quantitative measures that you can look at. There are other measures that you can make use of if you want to find out what is what makes your event successful. And that is by involving your target group, involving your audience. You can ask them for feedback, and in fact, you should ask them for feedback quite regularly. For today, I have picked 3 momentum in the event planning process where you can ask your audience for feedback, just as an example. You can ask your audience for feedback pre-event, during the event, or post-event. Pre-event, it can be part of a venue. For example, if you are publishing a pre-event architecture, you can ask for feedback as part of that venue. Pre-event architectures are a very great use case for themselves. It is simply something that you can do, let's say, a week before the event. You publish a smaller architecture, a smaller venue, a smaller form of your virtual space for attendees to get used to and familiarize themselves with the platform. Where can they find content? Where can they maybe get help? How can they contact you, etc. And as part of that venue, you can have a questionnaire about what they expect. Maybe you can ask them, what do you expect from this, from the event, from the upcoming event? But you can also send out pre-event communication to your attendees completely apart from the venue that you have built, asking your audience what kind of content they would like to see. And you can have your agenda online already, and you can have your attendees vote on the content. So they will then be shown as part of their agenda, what they actually want to see. And by that you create a very great involvement with your audience and make sure that you actually have the content that is most relevant to them. Of course, you can ask for feedback during the event. So, for example, you can include short questionnaires in our demo venue if you want to take a look outside, maybe, not now, but maybe after the meeting. Outside of the plenary, we have a very short reactions feedback questionnaire that our attendees can complete. How do they feel in that very moment? Are they happy with what they see? Are they kind of neutral or not so happy? And by collecting feedback while you are running your event will actually help you to modify content, modify the presentation, etc., while you are actually preparing to improve that for the next day. So that makes very much sense during multiple days events. Another way to ask for feedback is, of course, your post-event surveys. They're a very important tool to ask for more detailed feedback. When attendees have visited the event in its entirety, they can answer questions to you such as how did they like the content, how did they like the presentations, how do they feel about the navigation, how do you feel about interaction and engagement with other attendees. And by analyzing that feedback, you can then be way more elaborate on content the next time, if that was the ask by the attendees. You can change how content is being presented. Or maybe you have to consider changing your target group if both content goals and target group feedback, they don't quite match together. There might be the one or the other situation where you don't quite know what your target group really wants, or what they expect or what they favor when it comes to attending virtual events. What you can do then, as part of the venue designer and our live environment, is include some A/B testing so you can learn about your audience and what they really like. What you would do for that to start with is split your audience into 2 groups. You can do that at random, or you can apply a certain logic. And in the venue designer, in our user management tool, you would then assign a role for each group. Then you decide on the feedback that you want, or that you wait on the area on which you would like to collect feedback. You duplicate that area and you assign that area to the different groups. So maybe you want to find out, does it make more sense to present my content so attendees can read, or should I present my content in a way that attendees can watch and listen? For example, video content. So you can create both and assign each group to one of the 2 scenarios. And then after the event, obviously collect feedback so you know which version had more success. You can both analyze your quantitative data, as we have discussed a couple of minutes ago, but you can also analyze your qualitative data by actually asking the target groups for very specific feedback on how they have liked what you have done. So A/B testing is a very, very good way of finding out what your audience really likes. Of course, you need to draw your conclusions on that and then create your event concept a little bit different the next time, or you will even find out that you've done quite well with how you have presented the content. One way of asking for feedback as well when you are running a live show is including spontaneous reactions like we are doing right now in our plenary session. You can find out more about your audience in that very moment. So if you look at the screen to your left, you will see a question and we ask you, what is your main touch point with the Magnid platform today? Are you here as a person who builds venues? Are you here as a consultant for your clients? Or are you an attendee and are interested in find out how venues can actually be built? By looking at the results, I can then start to actually tailor the rest of the presentation to whatever I'm seeing here. Now that we have looked at what defines the success of your events and how we can make sure that the content that we are presenting is very target group specific, let's have a look at how content can be placed within the platform. How can you place content that actually matters? The first question that I always like to ask is, what is the focus of your event? Do you want your attendees to have a very immersive experience in one of our architectures? Or is it appropriate that your attendees focus on very, very content-specific presentations, be that actual presentations or PDF documents, video documents that you present for download? It's a question of taste. It's a question of what you want to achieve with your event. So there's no right and wrong answer to this. So it really depends on what you want to achieve with your event. If you decide that you would like to see your attendees explore content in a actual architecture and in a let's say in a world that visualize your messages, you're not limited to the 4 architectures that I've presented to you at the beginning. As we are working with a lot of image featured details, you can actually create the world that best fits your event. If your event has a certain topic, a certain motto, a theme, it's very easy for you to recreate or to match that theme or topic or message within the venue designer. So you're not limited to using any of the 4 architectures that we do provide for you as a stepping stone so you can get started. You can obviously create your own world and your own different experience for your attendees. The next question that we would be looking at is, how do you then create a navigation or an architecture within the venue designer? There are 4 different main aspects that I would like to point out today. Of course, there are many other aspects that you can look at when creating your venue and building your venue, but let's focus at the 4 different items that you see on the screen right now. So the first question that you would answer or would have to answer is, would you like to make use of a narrow navigation or a wider navigation? And the advantages of a narrow navigation is people can, or your audience can only go from one area to the next. By that, you can actually decide, you as an event planner can decide if you would like your audience to see content in a particular order and which order that might be. If you choose to go for a more wider navigation, then the attendee decides which content they want to consume in which order. What also will help you in creating a very exciting storyline and build a dramaturgy over days is if you time schedule content. Here as well, you as the event planner decide which content is being consumed when. However, instead of making it available at the time the attendee sees most fit, you actually decide on the timing of this. So it really helps you to drive the message to your audience in the way that you intended to. Also very important is that you specify the content that you have to your target groups. You can make content very relevant and very meaningful if you select content for your different target groups. That might not be a suitable case for all the different events that you have, but maybe in some cases you want to make sure that your audience is only seeing particular content. And by using the business roles in the venue design and restricting content, you can make sure that the target group can actually focus on the content that is very relevant to them. Another very important item to consider when you're placing your content is whether you are expecting your audience to attend the meeting on a desktop or on a mobile device. Because of the screen size, as you can imagine, the content needs to be prepared in a different way. So those are 4 very basic, but yet very powerful ways of how you can create very unique journeys for your event, for your target groups, and for your attendees. As promised, we want to show you some of the think outside the box smart widget use cases. So even though we have some very great tools and some very great widgets in our venue designer, and they have particular names, and initially they were designed for a very specific purpose, you can still define a different use for them. So if you want to implement something that does not have a named widget for it, maybe if you look at our toolbox, you will still find a widget that will help you deliver what you have planned. Just one example, our floor plan widget. It's a global widget, meaning it's available on every area, but it's intended to be the floor plan, but it doesn't have to be the floor plan. Now, first of all, you can choose that floor plan to be part of the visualization strategy that you have. So as you can see here, your floor plan can be a treasure map in a Caribbean setting. However, we have seen some of our clients use the floor plan icon or the floor plan widget as an agenda. So instead of uploading an image that displays a floor plan and an area setting, you can upload your agenda and then link the different areas to those navigation points. Yet another use case, maybe you don't have an event, but you have an ongoing platform and you would like to introduce your experts. So instead of having a floor plan or an agenda, you can have a team photo of your team. And next to the names, if you click on those icons, you will still get to an area like you would expect from a floor plan widget, but that area then would show that person in more detail and give your audience a way to get in touch with them. Now, a very abstract use case, but a great one, I think, when it comes to thinking outside the box, is how you can use different areas within the venue designer and make and create your own widgets. I've picked the agenda as an example to demonstrate this. Normally, you would create an agenda in an image widget or a PDF widget. So you have a very static agenda that you upload, attendees can have a look at and find out what is happening when. Now, sometimes you need or you would like to see an agenda that is very interactive. So instead of using one of the existing widgets, what you would do is create an area, and you can name the area agenda, and you will give it the look and feel of a widget. So as you can see, what I have created as a background rendering in this case is the look and feel as if you had opened a widget. Now on this area, of course, I can make use of all the different widgets that we have available in our toolbox. You can see on the on the left-hand side, I have placed the different navigation icons that will take attendees to the rooms of where the sessions are being hosted. What you see here is the image of the actual agenda, but you can also use images and PDF documents to highlight certain sessions and link speaker biographies on that widget area, on that area that you're using as a widget. And this is what it would then look like to the attendees. So they would not notice that you have not used one of our widgets, but instead you've used one of the areas. And it gives you very, very great flexibility to build for that exact use case that you have in mind. Another use case where you can take this approach is when you are creating a multimedia library. Sometimes if you are expecting a very interactive media library that attendees can play around with, consume content in very different ways, the existing multimedia library widget maybe doesn't quite meet those requirements. So you can follow the same approach here and create an area that you call multimedia library, and then make use of all the different widget contents that we have available in the toolbox and link according to your needs. You could also do the same with a speaker board if you want to introduce a speaker panel. So there are many different ways if you think outside the box, and rather than using one of our widgets, create an area that you pretend to be the widget, and then you can make use of all the widgets within that area. And by that, you have created your very own widget. Another example where you can creative and think outside the box a little is by using custom navigation icons. So instead of having your standard navigation arrows, you can create custom icons for them. So coming back to asking for feedback or looking at the quantitative data that you collect throughout an event, maybe you look at the event after day one and you realize that one of your areas has not been visited that well as you had hoped for. So in order to draw more attention to that area for the next day, you can simply exchange the icon, make that icon more prominent, make it a GIF, make it animated, or even bigger and a different color to draw your attendees to that particular area that you want them to be in. Another example that is very, very useful, and actually for this, I want to bring in one of our expert users of the platform, is creating a navigation bar. So Lennart, I know that you are with us today, and it was actually you and your team who came up with the idea of creating that navigation bar. So I'm asking you to tell us a little bit about how this idea came about and how you actually implemented this.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Lisbeth. So we actually noticed during our many events with the Magnid designer that some attendees, especially the older generation, are not really, they don't really understand how to navigate within the venue if you use the navigation arrows. Because what they are used to see in the internet are websites, and they always have the navigation menu on the top, and they understand how to navigate on a standard website. But within a virtual environment, it's harder for them to understand that you actually need to use these navigation arrows, and you need to click on to reach different areas. So we thought about how we can actually make it easier for these participants. And we thought, okay, why not use the same way as websites are built? So having a menu navigation in the top. As you can see it here, we actually implemented the menu navigation into our area backgrounds. So this is not an additional feature that Magnid offers. It's actually just part of our background that we used. And then we placed the navigation icons on top of it. So of course, we didn't want to have the arrows in there. So what we used were just transparent icons, so non-visible icons, so that you didn't saw that there was a button or an icon to click on. It was just the word, for instance, networking area. And then they understood, okay, I need to click there, and then I can go to the networking area. And another thing that we did here was actually highlighting the area where the participants were currently in. This also works very simple if you just you have different backgrounds that you implement in this particular area. And if you have the background for the welcome area is highlighted. So it's not a technical thing that we used here. We simply added that to our background image, and it helped the participants to actually understand where they are and where they can go.
Thank you very much for that insight, Lennart. That's a great idea of how to make navigation for your audience easier, actually, and listen to feedback that the audience obviously has given to you. Now, while we have you, allow me another question. Do you have other examples for think outside the box challenges that you have come across for your clients and that you have implemented?
Absolutely. So we were using the Magnid designer for quite a long time, and there were many challenges, of course, because our clients, of course, have different needs and new needs that they might have seen elsewhere. Or so what they would like is they give us an idea, and then we need to see how we can actually implement it. And often we actually use external tools for that. And the Magnid designer has, with the open widget, an widget that is actually designed for that. So to use external tools and to implement it into our venue. Just to give you an example of a tool that we really liked, for instance, Microsoft Booking. Microsoft Booking is a very, very easy to use tool to schedule appointments with experts, with speakers, and so on. And it's a very intuitive front end for the participants. So once they see it, they understand directly how they can actually book their appointment. And we like that tool, and our clients like that tool. And of course, we wanted to have it inside the venue. So with the open widget is what actually really, really easy to implement it. You just have the link to the booking page, and you can have it directly embedded on the in the area or in the overlay pop-up. So this is just an example on how you can actually use external tools to make the venue more interactive, more engaging. But we also were facing challenges where we had to use widgets in a way that were actually not designed for. So just to give you an example, when I was talking about using the open widget is meant to be used for embedding websites, implementing websites or external tools. But some of these websites simply does not allow them to embed. So they have some blocking function. So whatever you're trying to do, it's not possible to have it inside the venue simply because the website does not allow it. So there's nothing that we, as the user of the designer, can change about it. But what we actually can do is link outside of the venue to this website. So to have it opening in a new tab. The open widget does not support this function, but there are other widgets that do. And these are all the meeting widgets. So we have the Zoom widgets, the GoTo widget, WebEx widget, and so on. These all have the function that whatever link you place in there, it does not need to be a meeting link, but it opens in a new tab. So what we did a lot of times is actually placing standard website links in the in the meeting widget, place it anywhere in our venue, and then we have a clickable icon. You click on it and your website opens in a new tab. So although it's not inside the venue, you have a direct connection from the venue to this website. And the other way around, we also had use cases where we didn't want it to have the link opening in a new tab, but also not in an overlay or not to have it embedded, but we actually wanted to open it in the same tab. Now, again, the open widget does not support this function, but there is an image widget that actually supports that. Now, the image widget obviously is not a widget you're meant to use for a link, no? But we can actually link something on the widget, on the image. So if you click on the image, something opens, and this link actually has the function that it will be open in the same tab. So what we did also in combination with this navigation bar that you see here on the slide, as you can see in the top, we have the navigation bar. In the bottom, we still have the navigation arrows. So as you might know, it is not possible to actually link in the same area to, or let's say we are in the welcome area now, and to link 2 times to the networking area in the same area is not possible. So in every area, you can place this navigation icon only once for another area. But we, in this case, wanted to have it accessible via the navigation bar, but also via the navigation arrows. So what we did was using the image widget, embedding our arrow icon where we wanted to have it, and then actually placing the link to this other area in this image widget. And then we had twice the link from this area to, for instance, the networking area. So this was actually quite a workaround, and it sounds maybe quite complicated, but if you look at it yourself in the designer, you can see it's actually really, really simple. You just need to use the embedded function of the image widget. You place the link and you have a link in there that is opening in the same tab.
Thank you very much for that, Lennart. It's great to see, and I find these conversations that we're having quite often very, very inspiring to see all those different use cases that you actually have, that your clients come up with, that you request, and find actually how you can implement that. And even though I know I'm jumping ahead a little, and I do apologize, Ilse, for this, but there was a question for that just came in through the Q&A. How do you know all these workarounds, Lennart? How do you know?
Well, to be quite honest, I am working with the designer very for quite a long time. So it's over a year already. Basically, the answer is try it out. So I spend a lot of time within the designer, and I personally like to try out things that might not work in the first time and then try to look for workarounds. So I know it basically because I tried it all out, but of course also because my colleagues did the same thing. So within our team, we use the designer very often. We tried out new things. Before saying to the client it's not possible, we first try to look for ways around it. And sometimes, of course, you come to the conclusion it is not possible, but I would say in most of the cases we did find a workaround. So this is really exciting also to just see that that things are possible, although they might not be possible in the first glance. And yeah, that's what motivates me, and that's why I figured out this solution, for instance, as the navigation part as well.
Yes, and it's a great example of how many of our experts that we speak to individually have great ideas, and this is also why we thought about having this Magnid Monday meetings, to actually share the knowledge that each one of you has gained with the wider community, so everyone can profit. And also, of course, we want to hear about that so we can see what use cases are around, so we can constantly improve on the platform as well, and maybe make a workaround into a standard feature eventually. Now, I think we've taken up quite some time already. Ilse, I want to hand it back to you to see if we do have any additional questions coming up.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, first of all, both to you both, Lisbeth and Leonard, of course, for providing all these great ideas. I certainly found it very inspiring. I hope our audience agrees. The floor has been opened for any questions from the audience, so I do invite as well all of our panelists back on stage with me. Perhaps you even have more questions for each other. And I'm just checking as well. I mean, Leonard, I first have a question for you, actually, because I really want to know what makes an event successful. How do you know?
That's an interesting question. So, of course, there are different ways of measuring the success of an event. Obviously, the first thing that would come to mind is that the show itself runs well. But in my opinion, it starts even earlier. So Lisbeth talked about it already during her presentation, how we can actually measure success for the event. And I think especially the analytics are a really great tool to see if your plan with the event actually worked. So for me, there are two figures very important. First of all, we want to make sure that the attendees really come to our events. So usually when you plan an event, you have a registration or you send out invitations. So you have a brief idea in mind how many attendees you can reach with your invitation, with the registration. And of course, you want all of them to attend. And with the analytics in the end, you can actually see how well that worked. So you can see how many attendees were actually in my session, but also in the virtual venue, of course. And that brings me to the second figure that I think is very important, because of course we want to have a perfectly well running show, but also we want that our audience is really engaging with the platform itself, so with the virtual venue. And we can actually have a look in the analytics after the event to see if the visitors actually visited all areas that we placed there, and if they engaged with the content, if they open our documents that we placed within the venue, did they watch the videos, and so on. So these are all numbers that we can pull out from the analytics after the event. And these show us if the attendees really engaged with the platform, or if they simply entered the venue and then went straight to the plenary, to the session to watch the show, which is of course also good, but this is actually not what we intended them to do by building this the virtual venue. So I think this is really important to have a look at after the event. First of all, how many attended in comparison to how many registered or were invited. And then again, did the venue really worked well? Did the content was watched in a high number, and also did all areas were visited in high numbers?
Yeah, so really definitely attendance rate and engagement with content and venue. Speaking of attendance rate, of course, we've seen a huge change in the event industry in the past 2 years. What is at the moment a good attendance rate in virtual events?
Well, it is said that virtual events have an average attendance number of 30%. So 30% of those that you invite that have registered maybe will actually attend. So this is a number that is flowing around in blogs and so on for virtual events. In my personal opinion, but also my personal experience, is that this number is pretty low. So I would rather say an average number would be 60%. I would definitely aim for more. So let's say 70, 80%, I would consider as a really good number. But of course, it depends. I mean, if you send out an invitation link without really tracking it, without really controlling to whom this link is going to be forwarded, of course, you can't really expect everyone to attend that received this link in the end. But if you have a registration going on and you see that, for instance, 1,000 attendees have registered, then aiming for 300 would be a quite low number. So I think here we definitely should raise this number and go for 70% or maybe 80.
And I think within Magnid, we're definitely aiming for that number. I'm just checking in our Q&A. I do see another question for the audience. I think we just about have enough time to still answer it. Are there any new features planned for this year? I think this is a great question for Christian. Christian, I know you can't explain everything what's on our roadmap at the moment, but what are you particularly interested about? Can you give us a sneak peek?
Yeah, well, we have a couple of really cool features in store. As we're seeing that hybrid is getting stronger and stronger, this interaction or using such a platform, especially a venue together with live events, we're currently working on a 360 feature to integrate live 360 streams that you can position content in and interact with. And this gives you incredible possibilities to integrate that with the live venue and really place a camera in there, for example, in order to present live pictures and then put together content that our virtual visitors and attendees can consume. But we saw already today that content is so important. And currently we have a couple of sets on how you can integrate content, and we will improve heavily on that. We will provide functionality to collaborate on content, so to comment, to rate, to exchange ideas, to adapt it, and so on, but also to provide metadata and then to use AI to connect the content properly to the attendees. Make it very simple and easy to find and consume the right content, and by that increase the effectiveness of your content on the engagement rate in an event. And then what Leonard also mentioned, some things could be a bit easier. And we see that trend that a lot of meetings will be set up ad hoc and are way shorter than what we experienced the last years ago. So we will work on functionality to make that way easier, to make it very quick, but also give our customer base the benefits of having a full-blown venue, even if they only want to run a webinar, but make it very simple to use, very simple to set up, and very effective finally for the customer base. So that's what we've planned for 2022. Of course, a lot of small additional things, but yeah, we're looking forward to rolling that out and also to getting your feedback on that.
Thanks, Christian. As you see, there's definitely lots of cool stuff happening and coming up, so definitely stay tuned. Then I think if there are no other questions, we have actually already arrived at the end of our very first Magnid Monday meeting. I thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and we hope you've gained some new insights and inspirations to take along your virtual meetings journey. Our next Magnid Monday meeting will take place on the 28th of February. This will focus on cybersecurity and data protection, so make sure to save the date for this one, 28th of February. Now, as Christian already mentioned, feedback is very important and we do take this very seriously. So we would love to hear your feedback as well on our session today, and kindly ask you to fill out the short survey by scanning the QR code that you should be able to see now on your screen with your mobile phones. Then again, I thank you all very much for attending. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and we hope to see you again with the next Magnid Monday meeting. Thanks all. Bye.